Good morning. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Angel and Karen, Catherine, Lori, and Dan. And today we are going to finish up our discussion of Your Soul's Plan by Rober Schwartz. We've been talking about this book for a while now, and last week we finished up with the final chapter, and today we were just going to kind of go through the conclusion and the epilogue. But before we get going with that, I just wanted to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. And for those of you who are watching, you can find us at mindsetmasterycollective.com. That'll take you right into our Facebook group. And then you can comment or add your thoughts or ask to participate because we'd love to have you. And then obviously if you're enjoying this video, click like and subscribe to us on YouTube. So guys, go ahead and jump out, introduce yourselves, and then we can get the chat going.
I'm Angel Studebaker. I'm down here in South Carolina.
I'm Karen Lohoff.
Hello, I'm Catherine in Shawnee, Oklahoma.
I'm so sorry, Catherine. I'm Karen Lohoff in Mesa, Arizona.
Dan Sisek in Las Vegas, Nevada.
I'm Lori Emmons in Denver.
Awesome, guys. Glad to have you all on here today. And like I was saying, we're going to finish up our talk on Your Soul's Plan by Rober Schwartz. And if you haven't been watching any of these videos, you can find us on YouTube. Just search for Mindset Mastery Collective or the Saturday Morning Mastermind. And with either of those search terms, you'll find us on YouTube. And you can watch the all of the recordings and the replays for all of our discussions that we've had so far. So this book, Lori, I think you're unmuted. Can you mute for me, please? Thank you. So this book, the basic premise of this book is that that we plan our lives before we're born, and that's what Robert's talking about is your soul's plan. And we've talked about a lot of different situations in life, or whether it's personal handicap, deafness, blindness, alcoholism, parenting handicapped children, accidents, death of a loved one. Last week we were talking about planned accidents, and it was kind of really interesting because we learned about all these possible reasons why we might choose to plan these events in our lives, and lessons that we can learn, the experiences that we can have, and the meaning that we can gain from it. Because I think a lot of times we come into this life and we go through some really crappy stuff, and then we're going, why me? Why did this have to happen? And although when I first started reading this book, I was like, I don't know about this whole idea. I kind of grew on me, and it kind of gives me comfort thinking back on my life of all the things that have happened is maybe I did plan this, and if I did, then this makes sense and that makes sense, and this all kind of comes together, and it's just a really interesting concept. So that's kind of my thoughts to begin with. I want to give each person an opportunity to kind of share your thoughts on it, and then we can maybe jump into some of Robert's final thoughts in the conclusion. So who wants to jump out first?
I guess I'll jump out. For me, I'm still kind of on the book. I do agree with him that we are eternal souls, that we have, and that I'm still, some things about it kind of make sense to me, but I'm still kind of still trying to kind of wrestle with it and kind of get to the same place where I think a lot of you are. I just still have problems believing that, that so much of this is planned out, and it may take more going back through the book again, maybe, and just really rereading, and I'm just still kind of there in the middle. That's kind of where I'm still at.
Well, I've never been in the middle on this one, although I'm a little bit, I always wonder in any book that I read, any spiritual text, anything, how much, and with any channel or any medium, because I get messages, I get very direct messages. So I understand that communication. I also understand that I can interject my humanness on top of that communication, in other words. So there are some things that were said in the book that, I just wonder, I'm trying to think of a specific example. Okay, so the end of this most recent chapter, they were discussing Christina's pre-plans, and her spirit guides, her counsel, or whatever you want to call it, expressed concern that she was taking on such a dramatic experience. Like, it was almost like they felt like you could still learn the same lesson with a much easier experience. Why are you choosing this bomb explosion and all this drama? And it explained that not only was she trying to learn from this explosion and everything that she would go through, but that she was helping the bomber. He was trying to, I guess he had lived several lives where he felt unheard, and he didn't have a voice, and the only voice that he had was through explosions, and she was trying to help him find his voice. And so some of that didn't sit quite right with me. I just felt, I don't know, there was just something about that didn't sit quite right. It doesn't mean it's not right. It just means, like you said, Dan, I just had a little, kind of, I think we have a tendency as humans to put our humanness onto our guides. And because when I communicate with my guides, I won't say that they're more like Vulcans. Like it's very emotionless. The messages that I get are not emotionally charged in any way, other than if there's an immediacy. If I need to stop doing what I'm doing right now, it can be an abrupt interjection. But as far as, that's actually how I can tell when I'm trying to figure out whether to do something and I'm making a decision. That's how I can tell whether I'm following guidance or whether I'm following my fear. What's driving me is by the emotion behind it. Because if there's any emotion there, I know it's me and it's not my guides. So that's the only part of the book that I had any issues with. But it gives me, as someone who has suffered personally and suffered on other people's behalf, being an empath and feeling the suffering of everybody, it does, I have to say, it gives me some comfort to think that we pre-planned it and that all of that is for naught. And I would hate to think that God just, because I'm absolutely an eternal being. I'm not this body. I know that. I've been out of body too many times. So I would hate to think that God just punishes me lifetime after lifetime after lifetime for no fucking reason. And that, oh, sorry, we're on Facebook Live. See, this is why I don't like Facebook Live. Sorry, guys. I'm shut up now.
It's amazing to me how much humor I find in cussing. To me, this is a lot of what I have placed an importance on in my life. I remember when I was very, 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 very young, learning what was termed a plan of progression, and deciding that the thing that I looked most forward to was getting to a state where I would just be learning and growing and learning and growing all the time, and not having any restrictions, especially not having the restrictions of childhood and being too young to learn certain things. My very best friend from third grade on, I talked with her. I guess the last time I talked with her was probably, unfortunately, this is a terrible thing, but 12 years or so ago. And, before that, it had been a terribly, terribly long time too. But she happened to tell me that she had remembered or seen a vision of, or had a dream of, I don't remember which it was. It was just very real to me as she described it to me, of her pre-planning session before this earth life experience. And I could picture how it was set up, who was there, what they said. And one thing that I remember her saying is that they will intercede and suggest that you're maybe trying to take too much on if you're trying to, I would think, in the case of Christina, with her situation, I would think that it would be amazing if she wasn't guided to think about maybe you're taking too much on. And I so often think about that man. I wish I could remember his name. There's a lot of things I wish I could remember at this point in my life, but he's the one. If you've ever seen him, he was born without arms and without legs, both. And, when you think about taking on a life challenge like that and turning it into something to bless the lives of lots of people, I've seen him many times speak in front of young people in their puberty who are, feeling worthless and bullied and like their lives will never turn out. And they look at him and they listen to him and they know that there's no reason for them to have to think that way. And without even one cuss word, I'll hang up for right now.
I don't know if you can hear me. This is Lori in Denver. And it's all been a new, interesting thought process reading this book. I live with a man who people have told him at one time that he planned having cerebral palsy and all this, and he just totally rejected it. I've had no experiences like Samantha and what you were just talking about, Karen. And in a way, religious teachings and that told me that it was wrong, and I just have not had any experiences like that myself. I'm not cussing either, so have a good day. I'll talk soon more.
I was just going to jump out and say, I'm kind of, I think I'm kind of a little bit like you are, Lori, because I too believe that within what I believe, they would look at some of this and kind of say, that's not right. But at the same point, I've also heard that, that the way I've heard it, or the way it came across to me, is that God doesn't mind that we question, or that we want to ask questions, or, search things out that help us grow, I think, closer, and in that sense. And I'm also kind of like you, Catherine, when you were talking about the guides, as we saw in the book, a lot of times, the guides, for the most part, seemed kind of emotionless, except for the one time with the mother of the one who had the accident or what, I can't remember exactly, but she said no, she couldn't handle him doing it at like 10 years old or something. She wanted him to do whatever later, because that was the only time I really felt there was any kind of real emotion on the planning side. So in that sense, makes me think and look at, well, are emotions just an aspect of here in the physical plane here, and getting on, and when our eternal being goes back to the other part, does that kind of get detached, or what? Or because it says we learn and in the other side to reach that next higher plane or whatever. But I'm also having some troubles with that aspect of it, that how can they know or differentiate anything on the other side? I guess, and maybe they've talked about this, or maybe there was residual on the other side, or something that they can bring with it. I don't know. That's some of where my questions come in on that side of it. Because here we can feel the difference between pain, hurt, sadness, joy, peace, all those things. So I think that's kind of where I get some more of my questions coming in at.
To kind of add on what Dan said, maybe it's not necessarily that we don't feel emotions as eternal beings, or when we're on the non-physical plane. Maybe it's just like a different level of emotions, more of like the happier emotions, the ones that kind of, the ones that vibrate at higher frequencies, like more of like, happiness and peace, and stuff like that, and like acceptance. Like acceptance for everything and everybody, no matter what, or anything like that. Maybe it's kind of like that, instead of like when we're up there, we know what all of these emotions are, and whatnot. It's just kind of like we're, as eternal beings, we're already fully accepting of everything and everybody. So when we're up there and we kind of do the learning process about being human and whatnot, we hear about all these horrible feelings, anger, sadness, stuff like that. So we come down here to experience that, because all we've experienced is this happiness and peace and love, for our whole, eternal lives, so we come down here so we can better appreciate the feelings that we have up there, because without pain we don't know happiness, and without happiness we don't really know pain, kind of thing. So maybe it's like that instead of, we just don't feel anything when we're an eternal being per se. That was just my thought.
Yeah, well, we know for sure love is there, because that's the only thing I feel when I'm out of body is love. So we know that that quote emotion is there, and lots of care and concern and understanding, obviously. They would have to be detached to watch some of the things that we choose to do without getting overwhelmed and stuff. They would have to be, just like as a nurse, I learned to compartmentalize things so that while I was in an emergency situation, I could function and not get overwhelmed with emotions. And then later when I would go home or something, I could have the emotions. But so, there is a certain amount of detachment sometimes that has to happen even on this plane. So I don't know. I think that they just have a better understanding that we look at it as good and bad, but they look at it as all good. So yeah, I can hear you better too now, Lori. I don't know what you changed on your end.
Earlier, as people were talking about, Catherine talked about it as guides being more Vulcan-like and lacking in emotion. I was quite aware that in the final chapter with Christina, that they talked a lot about neutral, as Robert quizzed various people, whether it was the guides or mediums that he'd taken her to, or her own guide that she channeled. As he brought up his questions, in particular, as he kept trying to delve a little bit deeper, what the consequences might be for the bomber. Would the bomber, for example, accumulate karma? The answers were neutral, neutral, neutral. And neutral is something that, interestingly for me, has only been a fairly recent thing. And I guess I'm kind of hoping that that I can sustain that as, and I realize that not everyone, goes along with the conception of the idea of bipolars. And it seems like now every television station you turn to, someone is, it's being suggested that this person might be bipolar, or that person might be bipolar, or whatever. But as I look back into my history and realize that I was diagnosed at 36, which for me is now, 33 years ago, and I can recognize for myself my intense emotions. I was someone who, my best friend was someone that I saw as a very compassionate, loving, special individual. And I can recall a time that we were told to go out on the playground. We were looking at my sister's new glasses, and she was younger, and we weren't supposed to be in the building. And I went out and I sobbed through the whole playground experience following lunch, and then coming back into the school, going up the stairs, seeing my teacher looking down, thinking that other teacher had come over and told her what a terrible person I was and how I needed to be thrown out or whatever. That's a fly, by the way. And I have spent so much of my life at one end of the other of my emotions. And it's such a wonderful thing to be in I mean, it's not totally a wonderful thing, but I'm in a group home where people have so many different experiences, so many different difficulties. And, I know I would have normally just had tears streaking down my cheeks all day long, just seeing them and hearing them and being around them and thinking about them. And I'm really not doing that so much. I'm more taking things as neutral. And Angel, as you were saying, is that right? Yes. Those unpleasant emotions, anger and disappointment and all that kind of thing. I just listened to the neatest thing on a TED Talk about a woman who had an experience. She was told when she was 19 years old on a hayride that she was boring. And, it was like a sucker punch. And I remember just about that age being told by my music teacher, and he happened to be this big hulking German fellow that was attractive. I was coming off the bus and he says, "You're a prude." And, that has lasted with me forever. And she was explaining how these unpleasant feelings, they don't last more than 60 or 90 seconds. And if you just decide to be totally present with that feeling for that period of time, it'll go away. And I thought, wow, really? So that's my share for the moment.
Yeah, really, I'm glad that you shared that, Karen. It's interesting how many times somebody will say something to us and it sticks with us, and we keep thinking about it and going back over it in our heads, and so we get ourselves all wound up and upset about it. And but if, like you said, we just experience it in the moment and just allow that feeling to go over us and not continue to repeat it in our mind over and over again, maybe it wouldn't have the same effect on us. And it reminds me of one of the stories in the beginning of the book where the woman had chosen to have a really unpleasant experience with her mother so that she could learn self-love. I mean, that was the whole idea was, that her and her soul group with her mother was going to just talk down to her and treat her really horribly. And she was barely even a teenager, and she had just started developing, puberty wise. And her mom was calling her a slut, and I mean, just horrible, mean things to her along those lines. And how that just stuck with her for so much time of her life until she finally she went through some pretty significant things. And then she realized that she just needed to love herself and not worry about what her mother had said or what other people had ever said to her. And when she was able to do that, kind of sent her forward or expanded her spiritual growth level. And there was multiple stories in there that were kind of along the same lines, where the whole purpose of all these experiences they went through was so that they could learn how to love themselves. Because the suggestion is that what we have going on here is kind of like an illusion. We put ourselves into this illusion-like state so that we can experience these emotions and experience these physical pains and ups and downs in life, and then but then realize that we are, like what you were saying at the beginning, Catherine, that we're not our bodies, and that, you know, this is all just a construct that we've created to go through all this insanity so we can realize that we're really not a part of it, which is, it's kind of crazy when you think about it that way. But at the same time, we can kind of look at our lives and go, oh, okay, you know, I can see how that experience caused me to realize this, you know. So I don't know, it's just really an interesting concept. I know in the conclusion, oh, I'm actually going to pull it up on my phone because I highlighted some stuff in here. And one of the biggest things that Robert, he says, he's like, through them, I now understand this immense power of this most elemental truth, that we are not our bodies. And he says, if you are physically disabled, or you believe this is your only life, and you are no more than your body, then abject despair can result. If, on the other hand, you know, which is to say you feel yourself to be an eternal soul, then an entirely different life is the consequence. If you also know that you planned your disability, that it indeed had deep significance, then your life may become a quest to uncover that meaning. Suffering is lightened, emptiness replaced with purpose. And I think that's just, it's really, I think that's just amazing. I think we all kind of had an idea, or maybe not all, but I think a lot of us have an idea that we're somehow eternal, and that if that means that can help us ease our suffering here, if we know that we have this eternal, that we're going to go on beyond this. And I think the biggest question is just what does that mean exactly? It's still kind of, in my opinion, it makes everything, I don't know, easier, especially if we can like look at these things that happen in our life and try and learn something from them or figure it out. You know, it's a big puzzle, right? This whole life is just a big puzzle. And if we can look at all the different parts of it and kind of put it together with some kind of a meaning, then it feels better, in my opinion.
I think I kind of like how you were just talking about our lives are kind of like a puzzle that we're, as we go through it, we're kind of putting the pieces together. But yet, unlike a puzzle, I don't think we necessarily have exact boundaries around us. I think we just kind of, we have that far-reaching effect on people, and it in turn then affects other people. So I think in that, you know, that part of it, it's just getting the pieces together in the right fit so we can be that most impactful person, excuse me, that we are meant to be, whether, for lack of a better way of saying it, on this side of our existence or on the other side of our existence. Because I do agree, I do believe that we are eternal souls and that our soul goes on forever. So with that, you know, I do think there is more than what our brains fully comprehend and understand. Going back to things I've said before, you know, and that scientists and doctors have proven that we only use about 10% of our brain power and our, you know, and all that. So who knows what's within our brain power that we're still not tapping into, that might have some of these answers that we're searching for like people like us who do this mastermind and go through different books trying to help better ourselves, you know, find the best people, you know, person that we're supposed to be. So I think I, you know, get what you're saying on some of that.
There's a few different things in this conclusion section that I could kind of read through if we want. Shall I read through them? Okay. Just jump out if I'm reading and you want to comment on anything that I'm saying. Since I'm looking at this, I won't see you unmute. Okay, so just do it. Okay, so I don't know. And the one reason I wanted to just kind of read through these is he just kind of sums up in this chapter, or in this conclusion. So he says, in the days before I knew of pre-birth planning, I felt sympathy for others who appeared to be less fortunate than I, pitying a homeless person on the street, for example. Now aware that this seemingly bad experience may have been planned, I feel only deep respect. I ask myself, what did this person seek to learn or contribute? I remind myself she may be having exactly the experience she wanted. I tell myself he shows enormous fortitude in living such a difficult life plan. Though I do not know why each soul chose that challenge, I do know that the life was designed in wisdom and based on love. Perhaps, I say to myself, the homeless person planned such a life so that I and others who pass by may offer assistance or a kind word in order to experience and thus know ourselves as compassion. And then he says, in this way I have come to recognize little is as it seems. He says, let's see, before I learned of pre-birth contracts, I took much of life at face value, but now, having spoke with John, I understand that a soul may choose to experience AIDS so that I and many others may grow in tolerance. Having talked with Pat, I realized that an individual may plan alcoholism to reclaim his spirituality. Having learned from Sharon, I look at the unfailing love of so many mothers and fathers and wonder, did you and your child plan a drug addiction to show us what love looks like? And where I've judged, I now see a divine order to and in everything. Where I've seen flaw, I now see perfection, the perfection of lives unfolding just as we planned them. I've realized too, each of us has a divine purpose, a reason for being here, that includes but goes well beyond our own learning. That is, we plan life challenges not only to remember who we are, but also to share ourselves, our unique essence, with one another. John teaches tolerance, Doris brings healing, Jennifer offers lessons in truthful communication. We are gifted with Bob's gentle kindness, Penelope's egalitarian compassion, Pat's deep faith, Sharon's tireless heart, Valerie shows us that love is eternal, Jason's resilience inspires our own, and Christina helps us to see light in seeming darkness. Each of these souls came here to be the love they are, courageous souls, one and all. And I think that's kind of the biggest lesson in here, is that he's just trying to show that there can be meaning in everything. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a comfort in my opinion. And it's made me look at things different because, you know, the area that I work in, I see a lot of homeless people on the street. And I see a lot of people struggling because it's in a very, very low income industrial area. And so I see a lot of that. And I see a lot of people out on the road driving like crazies, you know, and that my first instinct is to judge them as crazy. And yet at the same time, I also know that, you know, sometimes people are driving in and they're just doing the best they can with what they have going on in their lives. And, you know, and maybe, I don't know, maybe their whole point of driving in front of me like a crazy is for me to realize that, oh, okay, you know, that person is trying to show me that I am patient and I can be a patient. I don't know. So I don't know. Everybody else jump out and kind of share some final thoughts. And then we can wrap up. We're already at almost at the top of the hour.
Maybe it's a lot kind of like, you know, kind of acceptance is maybe what it is. Because like when we're you know, eternal beings on the non-physical plane, you know, we all accept each other and we all love each other. Hang on, buddy. You know, we all love each other on the non-physical plane. And then, stop. And then when we come down here and we forget everything, we forget our pre-birth planning, you know, and as anybody can see, we are such judgmental beings down here on the physical plane. And so maybe these lessons, or with everybody else, the whole big thing of it is, you know, acceptance for for that person, for what they're doing. They have their own thing that they're doing, and just because they're doing it doesn't mean that it's going to interfere with you, or it doesn't mean that they're doing it to get back at you or to make you angry. It's kind of like acceptance for everybody's individuality, possibly. You know, like everybody has their own path to follow, and you know, and you always have this one person that like, oh, they can't do that, they're not supposed to do that, I'm on my path and that says not to do this, I think everybody needs to follow my path, kind of thing, you know. And you know that's wrong. It's like, no, you know. So maybe that's what it is the whole big thing of, you know, we need to learn how to be more accepting of ourselves and of everybody else for the paths that they decide to go. You know, and you know, we're all intertwined too, so their paths also help us on our own path as well too. You know, kind of like with the bomber and with gosh, what was her name? Kathy? I'm sorry, I forget the name of the book, the lady in the book that went through the bombing experience, but it was kind of like the bomber helped her on her life as well as she helped him on his life. You know, it's kind of like that whole, we're all helping each other, but we need to be accepting of it. Like we just need to help and just not whine about it per se. So I think that's kind of what I think. I think it's a big thing on acceptance and love. You know, like, yes, we need to learn all these the bad feelings and whatnot, you know, but we also tend to forget about the good feelings and the acceptance and the love that we can have for everybody else besides ourselves or besides our family unit. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Well, even in the family unit or whatever relationship, I guess I feel like it all goes back to we all have our own free will, and that creates a whole other, that's great English there, creates completely another perspective on it, that this is my will, and so much people forcing their will on others or their beliefs. So in the Bible, if you want to go that way, it talks about that. And I'm like, it has created so much confusion and judgment all across the board, everywhere you turn. And it's just magnified lately this past year. It's just a hard thing to grasp and understand and know, do what's right. Well, that's not right for me. So truth has to be something that is just true, and no matter what you think or believe, truth is just truth by definition. So it's been an interesting book.
I really want to thank Angel for mentioning accept the help. You know, I have kind of in my mind for a moment tried to apply that for a couple of, I've had two husbands, and one I think in particular, the situation, my ending, that all of that has colored my life so greatly, and just the idea of accepting the help, it's clear would be like, you know, a plane when it turns upside down so that it can turn around. That's some kind of a turn, an interloping turn or some kind of a thing like that. I can just see what a difference that would make in my life, and how it would help my boys, because I've always had such an unkind, look at that whole situation, and it would just be wonderful to accept the help. So thank you, Angel.
Well, I just want to remind everybody that, if this concept is true and we do pre-plan all this stuff, don't, it seems like we plan some pretty dramatic and suffering stuff. So in order to push us into certain emotions so that we can learn from those emotions. So don't avoid the emotions. Don't live in the emotions and dwell in the emotions forever and get stuck in the emotions, but you have to have the emotions. And somebody that, flies around the spiritual circuits all the time, I see a lot of that being squelched. Oh, you can't feel anger, that's a low vibration. Oh, you can't feel sorrow, you can't feel grief, that's a low vibration. Well, yeah, it is, but we came here to feel that stuff. I mean, if we all just needed to stay, it's just funny to me, because it's still, the grass is always greener on the other side scenario, even once you get out of the body. It seems like, when we're out of the body, we're all at this real high vibration, and then we plan all this stuff to feel other stuff, and we come down here and then we beat ourselves up for feeling that stuff because we feel like we're supposed to have this really high vibration. So there's so much judgment, like you said, Angel, there's so much judgment. Oh, we lost Samantha, she'll be back. There's so much judgment going on that shouldn't be. And I think that's one of the things that takes the edge or the emotionality out of the guides. When they're speaking, they're not caught up in all that stuff. Like we get so headstrong down here. Oh, they're doing something wrong, or it should be this way, or whatever. But they can see that everything serves for good, everything, no matter how horrible it is. And I know how difficult that is to accept here. And I know that this book is, when we started this group, it was primarily about, Think and Grow Rich and different books like that. This book is different, but it's still about mindset, because mindset is learning to choose what you think and figuring out what you think. So many people go through this life just thinking what they've been told to think. And that is why I love this group, because we bring up subjects and we can talk with each other and we can disagree with each other. We don't necessarily all agree on things, but we can have discussions about things, without getting into Third World War here. And we can expand our mind and we can explore, well, why do I believe that? And why don't I? Why doesn't that sit well with me? And we may not figure out all the answers, and that's okay too. I personally gave up figuring out all the answers a long, long time ago, because there's so much stuff that's happened in my life that is totally, you can't explain it. There's no way to explain it. So, but I do like to explore why I believe the things that I believe. I do love to explore that, and why other people believe. And I do look at people as masters, the people that have, and I'm not going to get into the current situation necessarily, but I'll just say, when I look at the things going on that I may not necessarily agree with right now, I still look at those people as masters that they came here to play that role, and I feel in so many instances against what their soul, doing things that their soul would find objectionable, but they do it on behalf of learning or helping someone else learn or helping the world learn or whatever. I'm in awe of people all the time. And even the ones that I hate the most, I'm still in awe. And that sounds insane, and that's okay. I accept that title. And I'm just glad I got through another diatribe without cursing. So love you guys. I'll see you next week.
I just wanted to add, along with, the acceptance, it's also, individuality as well, too. I see a lot of people not accepting individuality. And I know that kind of repeats what I was just saying, accepting another person, accepting what they do is their own thing. It's kind of that same thing, too. You got all these, I hate to do this, but the Bible and the Christianity is kind of a good example of no individuality. They're all trying to make everybody think the same thing. You have to believe this, you have to follow these rules, you have to do this, you have to act like this, talk like this, be like this, in order for this God to accept you. And it's so ridiculous, such a ridiculous thought, because then they also preach God is accepting of everybody, no matter what. And then they're going to be like, oh, you have to do this in order to be accepted into heaven. If not, you're going to hell, And so it's a lot of, you gotta let that person be who they are so they can figure out their own path. Because that's the whole point. You're down here on your own, on your own path, trying to figure out yourself. You also got these people that are coming in, crossing paths with you, and that helps you on your journey, but you got too many people that are trying to conform other people to their way of thinking, and I know I feel like I'm repeating myself as to what I was just saying, but I just wanted to add it. Individuality is a big thing that we don't accept, as well as, a species as a whole. So I just wanted to throw that out, acceptance of individuality. Thank you.
Having a little technical difficulty on this end. If you guys can talk for just another minute, I'd appreciate it. Maybe we could talk about the next book or something for a minute. Idea on there.
All right. Dan, I was just noticing your comment over there about staying in your emotions. He says, I tend to stay in my emotions sometimes because I feel that I really need to work through it. And then when I can do that, I can move on. And that's good. You need to stay there long enough to work through it. You have to explore emotions, not just the emotion itself, but why and why and why. And again, I'll bring up Byron Katie, the work, because sometimes we put ourselves through emotions, and sometimes emotions that linger and that affect lives and cause, major depression and things like that. And when we go back and explore what sent us into the emotion in the first place, it was just a false belief, or something that we were either told or that we told ourselves that wasn't even true. Most of the stuff that we get upset about and put ourselves through it is not even true. So that's why I love Byron Katie's work. Now, we've got a post up in our Facebook group, Mindset Mastery Collective, and we're voting on the next book. And if you have a book that you would like us to read and discuss, we'd love for you to jump into that Facebook page and add it to the post so we can vote on it. We've got, 7 or 8 books over there maybe right now on the list. And we always like to have a few different choices over there, and then whichever one gets the most votes is the one we go with. And there's a variety of books over there, but we'd love for you to add your book to the list, whatever that is that you'd like to read, and then jump on here with us. How's it coming over there, Samantha? Her computer shut off, so.
Yeah, my computer decided it was going to do an update right in the middle of all this mess. So gotta love it when it does that. Okay, so let me just go ahead and let's wrap up the Saturday Morning Mastermind, and then we can continue live on Facebook for another minute or two as we talk about these next books. So just for those of you who are watching, if you've enjoyed this and you're watching this on YouTube, then please click like and then subscribe to us on YouTube, and that way you'll get an update when we upload our next video. And if you're on Facebook, then click like over there too, or leave us a comment. Tell us what you thought about this live stream. It was a little bit different than what we've done previously. But anyway, with that, guys, for the Saturday Morning Mastermind, I'm just going to wrap up and have a great, awesome, amazing week. And we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.